our top 5 college coaches. Let's talk ball.
Top 5 head coaches currently head coaching in college football. Rocking with number 1, just I'll give our number 1s real quick. Got to go Nick Saban. If your number 1 head coach isn't Nick Saban, I'm curious.
Agreed.
I mean, not to be rude here, but you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
And,
Are we all there?
Yeah, 100%. To me, no doubt, he's surpassed Bear Bryant at this point. He's the greatest college football coach of all time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Seven national championships speaks for itself.
100%.
Yep.
And I believe there's a pretty sizable gap between 1 and 2.
Yeah, and one stat that I found amazing, that since 2008 he's won at least 10 games.
That's crazy.
So we're not talking about 2 or 3 years. We're talking about 11 years now that he's won
We're
at
talking
least
about the GOAT.
Yeah, at least 10 games. Yeah.
See, a lot of people don't remember the days.
He's the Tom Brady of
of coaching and
coaches,
college
no doubt about it.
Yeah.
you got to remember the days, all this offense stuff just came along 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember the days Bama was winning games 17-7.
Yeah,
Right.
defense,
And that was college football.
and their quarterback
That's
was
why
Greg
Saban was so
McElroy.
great.
Yeah, and Greg
Who
McElroy.
was their quarterback?
Yeah. Where's he at now?
AJ McCarron and to us,
SEC
Where's he
Network.
at now?
remember when AJ McCarron
Yeah.
was an elite quarterback? He couldn't play in the SEC now.
No way. It's a offensive raid now. In the
So number
ACC.
2, rocking with Dabo Swinney here. I feel about the same as number 1. If Dabo's not your number 2, something's wrong because, like I would say, resume speaks for itself. Yes, he's in the ACC. You can't knock everybody for not being in the SEC. You just can't. If everybody that was decent was in the SEC, you just couldn't play college football.
Right.
And the SEC is coming along. But with that being said, I mean, you have the national championships. Clemson gave him the opportunity, and what you see now is I call the Bama factor and the Saban factor is your coaches are getting basically 3 or 4 years. If you don't finish high at least, or even in national title contention, you're not going to stay. Yeah.
And I think what's most impressive to what Dabo has done is he's taken an all-time mediocre program to a year in and out powerhouse of a program, to a top 2 program the last 6 years.
Yeah,
And Dabo built that.
Yeah, Clemson
100%.
used to be this program that if they won in the Tommy Bowden era, if you won 9 games, that's a great season.
Great
Right.
year. Now,
But-
if we won 9 next year, people be freaking out.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing was with Tommy couldn't beat Carolina,
Right.
and that is
You have to.
the criteria to be a Clemson coach. You can literally win 11 games in a season and lose to Carolina, you're gone.
Oh, Curry. Well, I guess we stay away from Curry until we get. Well, no, if Curry couldn't beat Florida, he'd be gone.
But yeah, Dabo is my number, not my number 2 as well. And the 2 national championships is what speaks volumes for that. And Dabo could get to number 1
Get hot,
before
baby.
his
Have to get
his
really,
tenure
really
is
I doubt
over.
it.
Because I don't think
I
Saban's
doubt it.
done
I doubt Dabo's winning 7. I really
The
do.
reason
'Cause I don't-
Dabo is where he's at is because his ability to recruit the quarterback position.
Right.
Correct.
He has kept an elite quarterback. You're not doing anything in college football without an elite guy behind center. You can have a mediocre defense and a mediocre everything else. If you don't have that elite guy, you're not winning nothing.
Yeah.
And Dabo's kept, from Deshaun Watson to Trevor Lawrence and now to
Yeah.
DJ Ugalele.
Yeah.
Ugalele doo-doo.
But, all right, you're number 3.
Let's go number
A little
3.
bit of bias in there. So number 3 slot is when you're going to get into a little bit different.
A little bit of controversy.
Little
Especially
argument.
with my number 3.
So number 3, I'm rocking with Jimbo Fisher. He's got the national championship, pre-college football playoff era, playoff appearance. Goes from Florida State to A&M. Yes, he drove Florida State to the ground. But if you just bypass that, as you're not going to let us. But if you look at what he's done at A&M, with the resources he has, he's making good use of them. And I think Jimbo's going to continue to recruit well. And if you give Jimbo a few years, I think he comes out of the West one year.
Yeah, I agree.
And he can do it this year.
And, my number 3 is Lincoln Riley. And I'll tell you as to why Jimbo Fisher is not my 3. And I want to preface this by saying I'm definitely not the biggest Jimbo Fisher fan, but he is a great coach. And he, as you'll see later, he is in my top 5. But as David said, he ran Florida State in his last season at Florida State. He was 5-6. His last 3 years, 10-3, 10-3, 5-6, and he still had top 5 recruiting classes. And I think that's on him. I feel like he gets too much of a pass for the state that Florida State's currently in, and no doubt part of the reason Florida State's is at where they're at is because of bad coaching hires, is because of bad facilities. But a big reason is because of how Jimbo Fisher left him. He was 5-6 his last season, and he's doing some impressive things at Texas A&M. But I mean, 8-5, 9-4, 9-1 last year. But it was a COVID year. It was a bit of a weird year. I think he's a great football coach. He's got the championship in 2013, but his one playoff appearance, he got absolutely blasted by Marcus Mariota in Oregon. So that's why he's not my number 5, and why he's not my number 3, and Lincoln Riley is.
So why is Lincoln Riley your number 3 though?
Well, who's your number 3?
My number 3 is Jimbo Fisher as well, because as David had spoken before,
Got the big one.
He's got the big one, and that's what matters in college football is the big one, the national champion. If not for that, then yeah, I've got either Lincoln Riley or Kirby Smart.
He doesn't have the natty. Is he in the top 5?
I don't even think he's in the top 5, to be honest.
I mean, no doubt the natty.
I thought about putting Dan Mullen at number 3. He was pretty close.
No, you didn't.
Sure.
I'm just kidding.
Go home.
I did see a stat though that Nick Saban has recruited more people out of the state of Florida than Miami and Florida combined.
Kirby probably has too.
Probably,
just
yeah.
A few short years.
Yeah. Dan
Mullen can't win his
he's
state.
not even top tier.
All right, let's
No.
not have 2 more. Okay, who's your number 4?
I mean, Dan Mullen's out of this, but he's not
Yeah.
garbage.
All right, who's your number 4?
Number 4, I'm rocking with Kirby Smart. Though I'm a biased Georgia fan, I'm keeping it real, and I think he's easily a top 5 guy, and he's probably the number 4 best coach, regardless of who you have at 3 slot. Kirby Smart's ability to recruiting is 60 to 70%, probably 70 to maybe even 75% of a college football's head coaching job. I mean, that's
Can agree with that.
you have to recruit,
100%.
and that's the difference between college and the NFL. And then your second job is who you're hiring. Well, here's the deal. Everybody knocks on Kirby because, well, he needs to take his hands off the offense. A lot of people didn't see it last year because you didn't get a spring, and you really got a botched up summer camp and in August. But here's the deal. Kirby is taking his hands off the offense. Kirby is handing
Who's
the
your
keys.
offensive coordinator?
Todd Monken. I encourage you to do a little background check. Tom Monken's the real deal. And you're going to see an offense from Georgia this year, and I'm not saying we put up 45 points a game.
Yeah.
And I know we've been saying it for years, and it's one of those things just like LSU was in 2019, just like Clemson was when they won there. We got to see it. You're going to see a Georgia offense that is definitely more modernized this year, and probably going to score in the 38 points a game to 40 points a game margin. And the past couple of years, if a Georgia offense puts up those numbers, you're looking at a national championship.
Well, I'll tell you, my number 4 is also Kirby Smart, but I'll also go into a little bit of detail as to why Lincoln Riley is above him. And that's solely based off resume on paper. You've got 1 playoff appearance for Kirby versus Lincoln Riley's 3. You've got 1 conference championship for Kirby versus Lincoln Riley's 4 conference championships. You got 0 Heismans to Riley's 2 Heisman winners, 0 number 1 picks to Riley's 2 number 1 picks. And I know those last 2 aren't typically always given to a head coach, but no doubt Lincoln Riley uses that when he walks in Spencer Rattler's house. Look what I did with Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
Look what I did with Baker Mayfield. Same thing with getting Jalen Hurts out of the transfer portal, having those 2 Heismans and 2 number 1 picks.
Yeah.
So to me, strictly off of paper resume, I give a slight nod to Lincoln Riley at 3.
Well, I'm extremely impressed with what Riley did with Jalen Hurts. He went from
For sure.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure.
He was like a run-first quarterback.
Yeah.
And then he turned him into an elite passer.
Yeah, he did.
Definitely progressed.
My number 4 is Kirby as well. I've got him right above Lincoln at 5. Very margin between them is very, very small. And I think in order, whoever you're going to say is a better coach is going to be whoever wins the first big game.
Absolutely.
Right.
Whether it be a big playoff game or whether it be a national championship. Right. Of course, if it's a national championship, whoever wins is better.
Kirby does have a big playoff win.
That is true.
That's true.
Yeah, and one of the main reasons why I have Kirby above Lincoln is that head-to-head matchup.
Right. No, that's a big deal.
Kirby is also 4-2 in bowl games. Yes, I know that Lincoln has more playoff appearances, but he's 1-3.
Right. No,
also, and like we said before, recruiting, as David said, is 60-70% of making you a coach. Back in 21, Kirby had the number 4 recruiting class. Lincoln had number 10. Back in 20, Kirby had number 1 recruiting class, which is huge. Lincoln had 12th. Back in 19, Kirby had number 2. Lincoln had 6. I mean, every year he's beating him in recruiting.
Yeah. Which, no doubt, I would think you could argue that Kirby Smart's probably the best recruiter in college football right now.
Yeah.
But my only rebuttal to that would be, yes, Kirby Smart's recruited at a higher clip, yet Lincoln Riley still has more playoff appearances, still has more conference championships.
Well, as we've mentioned just in talking about this, Riley's got the easier route.
100%.
He
I agree with
does.
that.
I mean, the easier route is going to give you
Right.
more
Yeah.
opportunities. And yes, the Heisman's, when it comes to that, if we were to pull up everybody Kirby has had on the defensive side of the ball go to the league, I'm
Oh,
sure it
without a
would
doubt.
heavily outweigh
Oh yeah,
who
Sure.
Riley had. And so basically, you're looking at a defensive head coach and an offensive
Right.
head
Correct.
coach.
Absolutely.
And so
and offensive head coaches are going to produce Heisman winners.
100%.
Riley's going to,
Number one
Defensive
picks as a
arm.
quarterback.
Yep.
because I mean, when's the last time a defensive guy won the Heisman?
But one stat that
Oh,
I did,
yeah.
one stat that I found interesting about Lincoln was that in each of his first 3 seasons, he's won at least 12 games, which is impressive.
Right.
But that goes back to a lot of what we just talked about being the conference that he
Right.
plays in.
Right.
But also, and I agree that if you swap Georgia, put them in the Big 12, and then you went and put Oklahoma in the SEC, that Georgia would no doubt be having the same success. They'd probably even
They would
they'd
be.
probably have playoff wins, but at the same time, they're not in the Big 12.
Yeah.
And Oklahoma's not in the SEC, and we can't go solely off of
Yeah.
hypotheticals.
So I think we can all agree in closing that number 1 and number 2 is no doubt Nick Saban.
You got
Dabo.
Nick Saban
Absolutely.
and Dabo.
And then
and
your
there's a gap.
Yeah,
Right.
and then after you said, like you said, then there's a huge gap between the rest of them, which could be Jimbo, Kirby, Lincoln Riley, and they all fall
well, for me, Jimbo's my 5.
right. Yeah, Jimbo. Yeah, Jimbo's right there.
Regardless of how you have those 3 ranked, they're all there. And I'm gonna say this: Kirby wins the Natty this year.
He's going to number 3, no doubt.
He's over
Oh,
Jimbo.
100%.
And the same thing with Lincoln Riley.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
And then you fall back into the Ryan Days, the Kellys, and
Right.
then Notre Dame.
Right.
You
So,
fall,
who,
You're
y'all's
Luke
number
Fickles.
5, Riley and Riley?
yeah, my number 5 is
Yeah,
Riley.
I'm going
yeah.
Lincoln Riley at
Yeah,
5.
Lincoln Riley at
And
number 5.
basically between him and Kirby,
Yeah.
whichever one wins the Natty.
Oh, 100%.
And when they
It's
do,
neck and neck.
just
Yeah.
go ahead and put them in the 3 slot
Yeah,
for me.
I can,
And like Dow was saying, my first 2 out would be Ryan Day and
Yeah,
Brian Kelly. And I think we could all agree in 2 years from now, Ryan Day's no doubt top 5 on the
Top
list. and
5,
he's
yeah.
probably not number 5.
Yeah, he probably is.
he's
but
probably kicking Jimbo out.
He's probably pushing. He's probably vying hard for that 3 spot.
Ryan Day's recruiting at an elite level right now.
He is.
Um,
He is.
I think C.J. Stroud's going to be a very good college football guy, a very good quarterback. I really wanted him at Georgia, and he didn't go because I believe he thought Fromm was going to leave. But he beat us for a quarterback. It is what it is. But here's my first 2 out. I'm going Brian Kelly, and I'm going Luke Fickell. I really like Fickell, what he's done at Cincinnati.
Yeah.
He's made a group of 5 team into a
Absolutely.
Powerhouse.
top
yeah.
10 team.
doubt.
Yeah,
Great
hung with Georgia.
Hung with
I know
Georgia.
Georgia pulled away, but hung with Georgia for the first half.
Well, really, we won at the last second. And,
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at that game, was Georgia taken away from in the bowl game? Yes, but your major teams, it comes to a bowl game. That's your new norm.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely.
And
So-
so I like Luke Fickell what he does there, and I want to see more from Ron Day.
Right.
But I agree, you give us in 4 years if we have the same kind of discussion, Ron Day's in your top 5.
Yeah.
And yeah, like going back to Ryan Day real quick, the only reason he's not my top 5 is because he's pretty much coached a year and a half. I mean,
Yeah,
one
he doesn't
full
have the experience.
season.
Yeah,
Last year,
yeah, you
they
can't
played
base
6
it off
games,
of one
yeah.
season. Yeah,
No,
Right.
especially not
Exactly.
in a
So-
weird COVID year.
Yeah.
But I think that about wraps it up. That's our top 5 coaches. Feel free to. We'd love to hear your comments about what you think about our top 5. Also, love to see who your top 5 coaches are and why. So
Absolutely.
looking forward to hearing back from you. Stay tuned for our next episode.
Thanks for tuning in.
Until then, keep talking ball.